Hi, I'm Nick with History Explained, and this is the second episode of the Normandy series. This will be the final one, and then I'm going to start working on Rome. Um, Thank you for 107 views, as I said before, and the subscriber count growth has been great. Thank you, and let's get started. So, Utah Beach was in the area defended by two battalions of the 919th Grenadier Regiment. Members of the 8th Infantry Regiment of the 4th Infantry Division were the first to land, arriving at 6:30 a.m. Their landing craft were pushed to the south by strong currents, and they found themselves about 2,000 yards from their intended landing zone. This site turned out to be better as there was only one strong point nearby rather than two, and bombers of the 9 Bomber Command had bombed the defenses from lower and their prescribed altitude, inflicting considerable damage. In addition, the strong currents had washed ashore many underwater obstacles. The assistant commander of the 4th Infantry Division, Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., the first senior officer ashore, made the decision to start the war from right here and ordered further landings to be rerouted. The initial assault battalions were quickly followed by 28 DD tanks and several waves of engineer and demolition teams to remove beach obstacles and clear the area directly behind the beach of obstacles and mines. Gaps were blown in the seawall to allow quicker access for troops and tanks. Combat teams began to exit the beach at around 9 o'clock, with some infantry wading through the flooded fields rather than traveling on the single road. They skirmished throughout the day with the elements of the 919th Grenadier Regiment, who were armed with anti-tank guns and rifles. The main strong point in the area, another 1,300 yards to the south, was disabled by noon. The 4th Infantry did not meet all of their D-Day objectives at Utah Beach, partly because they had arrived too far to the south, but they landed 21,000 troops at the cost of only 197 casualties. On Omaha, the most heavily defended beach was assigned to the 1st Infantry Division and the 29th Infantry Division. They faced the 352nd Infantry Division rather than the expected single regiment. Strong currents forced many landing craft east of their intended position or caused them to be delayed. For fear of hitting the landing craft, U.S. bombers delayed releasing their loads, and as a result, most of the beach obstacles at Omaha remained undamaged when the men came ashore. Many of the landing craft ran aground on sandbars, and the men had to wade 50 to 100 meters in water up to their necks while under fire to get to the beach. In spite of the rough seas, DD tanks and 2 companies of the 741st Tank Battalion were dropped 5,000 yards from the shore. However, 27 of the 22 flooded and sank, with the loss of 33 crew. Some tanks disabled on the beach continued to provide covering fire until their ammunition ran out or they were swamped by the rising tide. Casualties were around 2,000 as the men were subjected to fire from the cliffs above. Problems clearing the beach of obstructions led to the beachmaster calling a halt to further landings of vehicles until 8:30. A group of destroyers arrived around this time to provide fire support so landings could resume. Exit from the beach was possible only via 5 heavily defended gullies, and by late morning barely 600 men had reached the higher ground. By noon, as the artillery fire took its toll and the Germans started to run out of ammunition, the Americans were able to clear some lanes on the beaches. They also started clearing the gullies of enemy defenses so that the vehicles could move off the beach. The tenuous beachhead was expanded over the following days, and D-Day objectives for Omaha were completed by D-Day +3. Gold Beach. The first landings on Gold Beach were set for 7:25 due to the differences in the tide between there and the U.S. beaches. High winds made conditions difficult for the landing craft, and the amphibious DD tanks were released close to shore or directly on the beach instead of further out as planned. 3 of the 4 guns in a large emplacement at the Longues de Mer battery were disabled by direct hits from the cruisers Ajax and Argonaut at 6:20. The 4th gun resumed firing intermittently in the afternoon, and its garrison surrendered on the 7th of June. Aerial attacks had failed to hit the Le Hamel strongpoint, which had its embouchure facing east to apply enfilade fire along the beach and had a thick concrete wall on the seaward side. Its 75mm gun continued to damage until 1600, when a modified armored vehicle Royal Engineers AVRE tank fired a large petard charge into its rear entrance. A second casemated emplacement at La Riviere containing an 88mm gun was neutralized by a tank at 7:30. Meanwhile, infantry began clearing the heavily fortified houses along the shore and advanced on targets further inland. The number 47 Commando moved port on the small port at Port-et-Bassin and captured it the following day on the Battle of Port-et-Bassin. Company Sergeant Major Stanley Hollis received the only Victoria Cross Arromanches, future site of Mulberry B, and contact was made on the eastern flank with the Canadian forces at Juno. Bayeux was not captured the first day due to stiff resistance from the 352nd Infantry Division. Allied casualties at Sword Beach are estimated at 1,000. Juno Beach. The landing at Juno was delayed because of choppy seas, and the men arrived ahead of their supporting armor, suffering many casualties while disembarking. Most of the offshore bombardment had missed the German defenses. Several exits from the beach were created, but not without difficulty. At Mike Beach on the western flank, a large crater was filled using an abandoned AVRE tank and several rows of fascine, which were then covered by a temporary bridge. The tank remained in place until 1972, when it was removed and restored by members of the Royal Engineers. The beach and nearby streets were clogged with traffic for most of the day, making it difficult to move inland. Major German strongpoints with 77mm guns, machine gun nests, concrete fortifications, barbed wire, and mines were located at Cossou-sur-Mer and Saint-Aubin-sur-Mer and Bennecy-sur-Mer. The towns themselves also had to be cleared in house-to-house fighting. Soldiers on their way to Benny-sur-Mer, 3 miles inland, discovered that the road was well covered by machine gun emplacements and had to be outflanked before the advance could proceed. Elements of the 9th Canadian Infantry Brigade, one more please, advanced within sight of the Carpiquet airfield late in the afternoon, but by this time their supporting armor was low on ammunition, so the Canadians dug up for the night. The airfield was not captured until a month later, as the area became the scene of fierce fighting. By nightfall, the contiguous Juno and Gold Beachheads covered an area of 12 miles wide and 5 miles deep. Casualties at Juno were 961 men. On Sword, 21 of 25 DD tanks were one of the first waves successfully getting safely ashore to provide a cover for the infantry, who began disembarking at 7:30. The beach was heavily mined and peppered with obstacles, making the work of the beach clearing teams difficult and dangerous. In the windy conditions, the tide came in more quickly than expected, so maneuvering the armor was difficult. The beach became quickly congested. Brigadier Simon Fraser, the 15th Lord Lovat, and his 1st Special Service Brigade arrived in the second wave, piped ashore by Private Bill Millen, Lovat's personal piper. Members of the No. 4 Commando moved through to Al-Stram to attack from the rear a German gun battery on the shore. A concrete observation and lower tower at this emplacement had to be bypassed and was not captured until several days later. French forces under Commander Philippe Kiefne, the first French soldiers to arrive at Normandy, attacked and cleared the heavy fortified strongpoint at the Casino at Rivabella with the aid of one of the DD tanks. The Morris strongpoint near Colivrier-sur-Mer was captured after about an hour of fighting. The nearby Hillman strongpoint, headquarters of the 736th Infantry Regiment, was a large, complex defensive work that had come through in the mornings of bombardment essentially undamaged. It was not captured until about 8:15 p.m. The 2nd Battalion, King Shropshire's Light Infantry, began advancing to Caen on foot, coming within a few kilometers of the town, but had to withdraw due to lack of armor support. At 1600, the 21st Panzer Division mounted a counterattack between the Sword and Juno, nearly succeeded in reaching the channel. It met stiff resistance from the British 3rd Division and was soon recalled to assist the area between Caen and Bayeux. Estimates of Allied casualties on Sword Beach are as high as 1,000. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next video.